Since 1999, Venezuela netted over $900 billion from exports. It borrowed over $115 billion more than what it had then. It grew its monetary base from 10,000 billion to 33 million billion bolivars, and it devalued from 577 bolivars per dollar to 25 million bolivars per dollar. The question is then, where is the money? Spinning hyperinflation at 3,268 turns. Venezuela increased its monetary base by 326,800% while losing 30% of its international reserves over the last 18 years. Stating historic monetary aggregates in traditional bolivars at a log scale help us compare August 2017's total of 33 million billion bolivars versus February's 1999 10,000 billion bolivars and reserves of $10 billion versus $14 billion, respectively. Whatever reasons justified implementing this ruinous economic path become more sinister as one expands the study to include the 23 years prior to 1999, when currency debasement amounted to less than 6% of its current magnitude. At every moment and place, the ratio between the total stock of a resource and the money in circulation determines its price. In Venezuela, this price is governed by the total amount of bolivars in circulation versus the total number of units of any good. Hence, if we do not increase the supply of goods and services, but we raise the number or denomination of our banknotes, the red line in the graph, we automatically raise the proportion of bolivars per unit of material goods. Thus, we raise the price in bolivars per kilo, square meter, milligram, cubic centimeter, etc., of all existing products. Once described, this dynamic becomes obvious, but we must admit that without knowing the size of the monetary aggregates or which of them is rising, we might think it is product suppliers who are raising their prices. Yet, over time, we would realize that 100% of the alleged price rise was a mirror effect of Bolivar depreciation. It would become obvious then that by forcing us to increase the number of bolivars needed to buy the same number of items, the government is carrying out a covert yet massive Bolivar devaluation to transfer the cost of its growing fiscal deficit to us. Unfortunately, to the extent that intermediaries, importers, producers, distributors, bachaqueros, etc., do not manage to increase the price of goods at the speed at which the government prints new bills, they are pushed to replace inventory at a loss, which drives them to reduce and ultimately suspend their intermediation function. Meantime, intermediaries who manage to survive and thus postpone scarcity and a much higher escalation of prices are vilified for their efforts. In short, when the users of a currency understand that monetary expansion is meant to continue expropriating their productivity, hyperinflationary expectations set in. At this point, Stopping hyperinflation requires implementing two critical steps. First, restoring faith in the currency to decelerate money velocity, which is the speed at which a currency changes hands. Second, announcing an economic reform plan that explains how much money is required to cover a non-deficitary annual public spending budget and how to finance a transition to that budget. At a minimum, this announcement must include what are the required steps, what justifies each of them, and the time estimated and therefore committed to implementing them. The only way to restore faith in the Bolivar is to make its convertibility to any currency and material resource unlimited. Succeeding with this announcement means convincing users prone to spend their bolivars as soon as they get them to stop doing so. Such an attainment implies a vote of confidence that will reduce money velocity long enough to implement the second step. There are only two solutions to restore confidence in the currency. The model implemented by Bolivia in 85 and ourselves since the late 80s, slowing down money velocity by devaluing the Bolivar to an exchange rate low enough to be defensible with whichever level of international reserves truly exists in the central bank. The implementation of unlimited currency conversion at a fixed exchange rate linked to a stable currency such as the dollar, the euro, or even the yuan. In this case, the central bank commits to exchange any number of bolivars at a fixed proportion within a price range against another currency. This is how Argentina resolved its hyperinflationary crisis in 91. Following the unlimited convertibility decree, the government team must develop the reform plan by analyzing how to finance long-term public spending and the immediate transition to that arrangement, while giving priority to the poorest sector of the population, stimulating local and foreign investments in economic sectors prone to generate the highest amount of revenue in the shortest period, ridding itself of all state companies where private sector bias can be subjected to carry the losses or to promptly pay all taxes on subsequent gains, while meeting all legal requirements, i.e., working conditions, health insurance, accounting standards, etc. At the same time, the government should analyze any preferential financing offered by the global monetary corporation entities and their ability to certify to the Venezuelan people the feasibility of its reform proposal, plus monitoring its success or failure and its timing versus plan. Whoever controls the volume of money in any country is the absolute master of all industry and commerce. James A. Garfield, 20th President of the United States.